at staggering velocities with a staggering and devastating loss of life. It's heartbreaking to see that. Events like this reinforce why real-time flood warning systems based upon radar and advanced technology are not just in big cities and rural areas, but they need to be provided. The tools exist, we just need to put them into place. I've also got some handouts that I've provided to you that clearly show some of these maps and what they look like through time. And with that, I will close, and I'll defer to my colleague, Dr. Fang.
Go ahead, Dr. Fang.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Phil, and thank you all, Chairman Perry and Chairman King and all the committee members, and be very honored to share my knowledge here today. I want to really today, I think all the scientists, researchers, professors here, already shared many good, stuff here
Dr.
too.
Fang, if you'll pull that real close and talk real big.
Trying to eat it. So what I'm trying to say here is a couple points. Any flood warning system is not about the system itself. It needs a couple things. One is the infrastructure, which is all the model and the system itself, computer infrastructure. And second one here is human being, because you cannot really solely depend on, the system itself and to make a decision, there too. So that really leaves in a couple, really the questions right here is the system not only need upfront funding, but also we need to have a recurring funding to support the system and even putting the operation maintenance costs there as well. And plus additional funding for future research and development there. So those are the things I think over the years I really realized to have a successful system is not only about building system itself. Obviously, we're researchers and we're also educators as well. So many different things when we're doing it, we wanted to provide a very solid public education. Flood science is a very complex topic these days. And Texas is big, and we have very sophisticated terrain in Texas and different climatic zones. And so we cannot really develop one single flood warning system for whole Texas these days. We have to tailor the system itself for different zones because terrain is very different. Climate is very different. So universities here, we are actually helping, it's the state agencies. And we like to kind of work with the state agency, provide what we learn, not only the past knowledge, but also the new knowledge, AI, machine learning. We've been very fortunate working with the Water Development Board over the years and to assist them to develop the flood warning system guideline and also the rainfall enhancement there as well. So really the point right here, I want to urge the state to really consider about the flood warning system is not one-time investment. It's a recurring investment and continues. And second one here is a flood is a very infrequent natural phenomenon. It's very easy to lose people's focus if the weather getting dry. And we still need to continue invest this area as well. So I'm just going to, for the interest of time, stop right here.
Chairman Perry, Chairman King, members of the committees. I am David Maidment, Professor Emeritus of Civil Engineering, representing the Center for Water and the Environment of the University of Texas at Austin. Like my fellow Texans, I have been shocked and devastated by the awful flood disaster that occurred on the Guadalupe River and elsewhere on Independence Day. The loss of 137 lives, many of them children, marks a heartbreaking chapter in our state's history. For me, this is especially poignant because for the past 10 years, I have been at the Center for Water and Environment. Our team is working with the state agencies, the National Weather Service, and the U.S. Geological Survey to enhance real-time flood information. We focus on assessing what happens to the water once it hits the ground, flows through the rivers and streams, and creates flood impacts. We do not work on weather or precipitation forecasting. During these years, we have worked closely with Chief Kidd and TDAM. I served in the State Operations Center throughout Hurricane Harvey, helping to provide improved flood information. Since 2017, our research has been sponsored by TxDOT. This is the largest single research project in the history of that agency. We wish to thank the TxDOT Research and Technology Implementation Program for their strong and sustained support of our research effort. Over the past 10 years, steady progress has been made in the following areas. National Water Model. In 2015, the National Weather Service established a new National Water Centre in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, to improve national flood forecasting. We led the engagement of the academic community with the National Weather Service to create the National Water Model. A prototype of this model was developed in Austin at the Texas Advanced Computing Center, or TAC, in 2015. And the model was made operational by the National Weather Service in 2016. The National Water Model continually forecasts flow throughout the stream network of the United States, including 200,000 miles of streams and rivers in Texas. Water has become like weather, forecast everywhere, all the time. Statewide flood inundation mapping. With the support of TDIM, we created in 2016 the first version of large-scale, real-time flood inundation mapping. This methodology was adopted by the National Weather Service and is now being deployed in an improved form across the country. Real-time flood inundation mapping covers now half of Texas, and the rest of our state is expected shortly. Publicly accessible flood map services from the National Weather Service depict current flood inundation and worst-case future flood inundation. Flood decision support gauges. Since 2017, with TxDOT support via research funding, we have initiated a consistent program that deploys novel radar stream gauges on TxDOT bridges. These gauges measure both water level and velocity rather than water level alone. TxDOT later expanded this program to 80 gauges, which are installed and operated by the U.S. Geological Survey. We call these flood decision support gauges because they measure stream flow during flood events. These gauges are particularly applicable for flash flooding because they can potentially detect the velocity spike that often precedes the rise in water level during rapidly rising flood flow. The nearest TxDOT flood decision support gauge is on the Guadalupe River at Comfort, just downstream of Kerrville. Provisional data provided by the USGS for the July 4th flood show that the water level began rising there at 8 a.m. The velocity spike happened at 8:10 a.m. and the water level peaked at 9:45 a.m., 1 hour and 35 minutes later. Now, I want to stop here. This is a really critical piece of data. What happened at 8:10 a.m. is that the velocity of water in the Guadalupe River increased from 2 feet per second to 14 feet per second in 5 minutes. It just went straight up. And then the water stage height gradually increased over the next 1.5 hours to 35 feet. But before that, there was a signal. So, Vice Chair Flores, you spoke about the monster. The monster was sending a signal. There was a signal coming ahead of that. And that's well understood in fluid mechanics. When you quickly increase the slope of the water, there's a velocity wave that gets sent out of the head of that, and that velocity wave is detectable. And our gauge at Comfort detected it in this July 4th flood. Now imagine if that gauge, or gauge like that, had been at the Mystic Camp. The flash flood occurs upstream, the velocity wave propagates downstream, the velocity spikes detected at the camp, the siren goes off. I mean, it doesn't take much to connect the dots here. So there are solutions that can emerge out of this. There is new kind of gauging that can occur. Although not suitable for all gauge sites, radar stream gauges have the potential to be less expensive than the full-range gold standard USGS gauges, and they collect water level and velocity as compared to local flood alert gauges, which collect only water level. The TxDOT network is the largest deployment of radar stream gauges in the United States. While significant progress has been made, our work with TxDOT is still in the research phase and is not fully ready for operational use today. Integrating components into a seamless, unified system remains a challenge. To improve resiliency for future flood events, I recommend the following: statewide flood decision support gauges. Texas has 25,000 bridges over water, more than any other state. We can use this as a foundation for a statewide coverage of flood decision support gauges by equipping more bridges with radar streamflow sensors. Texas Flood Hub. Data from all the real-time precipitation, streamflow, and water level gauge networks operating in Texas should be ingested into a single system that is publicly accessible. Improved flood inundation mapping. Over the past 5 years, Texas has developed base-level engineering models for statewide flood planning. In parallel, we have developed the methods to translate the output of these models into real-time flood inundation maps. The application of these translation methods should be accelerated. Training Centre. A technological transformation in which real-time flood map services from the National Weather Services have become publicly accessible for everyone has occurred. The existence of these services is not well known and they are underutilised. A training centre is needed for public officials and first responders to learn how to get direct access to flood map services during flood emergencies. Thank you for the opportunity to make this statement. I will be pleased to answer any questions you may have.
Representative Wilson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Sir, it's Dr. Medment.
Yes.
Am I pronouncing that correctly? Are you familiar with the Bureau of Economic Geology?
Very familiar.
Okay. And you mentioned the advanced computation
Yes.
both in 2015 and
Yes.
16. Are you familiar with their work that they're doing in water mapping right now?
I'm sorry, the work they're doing?
The work that they're doing right now in water mapping?
Well, I do a lot of water mapping, so tell me about that.
Are you familiar with what they're doing
With
right
the
now?
TAC or the Bureau of Economic Geology?
I can't understand you, sir.
The Texas Advanced Computing Center or the Bureau of Economic Geology?
Together, both. Yes, sir.
No, tell me, I don't, I'm
So
not.
if you would mind, please, I would like you to take a look at, get in touch with them at the Bureau of Economic Geology, and if you would look at what they're doing on water mapping,
Okay.
I appreciate your feedback on it.
I'll
Thank
do
you.
that.
That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Go course.
Thank you very much. Thank you for this esteemed panel. Very quickly, I believe it's Dr. Nielsen Gammon. On page 5 of your testimony, I'm going to go to the second to the last paragraph. I'm not going to read it, but one of your testimony starting there talks about it's remarkable to me how poor the National Weather Service models were at providing 24-hour or 48 warnings of this event. Skip down to the Del Rio. Believe it or not, Del Rio is the only upper air station along the Texas border between El Paso and Brownsville, a distance of 706 miles. As I would say, crow flies, you chose vulture. So herein lies the question. Who's in charge of these upper air stations, and why is there not one in between?
The National Weather Service is in charge of
Can you lean forward?
Pardon? Oh, John Nielsen Gavin. The National Weather Service is in charge of the upper air stations. Presently, they are, after reorganization of the Weather Service in the 90s, they were co-located with local offices of the National Weather Service, and those are the only two local offices. Well, the three listed are the only local offices along the border, so that's the reason there isn't anything in between.
Maybe we can remedy that. I'm going to go to now, I'm not sure who provided this. Was this?
That's the Speed Center.
If you would state your name for the record.
I'm sorry, Phil Bedient.
I'm noticing on your map, I think these are the forecast gauges with the red dot. Is that correct?
Yes, I'm going to let Dr. Fang answer that because he created that.
Okay, Dr. Fang. Are those the present gauges or are those what y'all are proposing?
Okay, closer. Those are existing gauges, and whether USGS and but basically NOAA Weather Service, they provide those flood warnings. I mean, at those red dots as on these particular maps.
Obviously, nothing along the South Fork where Camp Mystic is.
Currently, no, but it's on the downstream of the confluence right there. That first one you see.
Okay, and then as I skip to Texas Tech and your recommendations. So if I look at all of y'all's recommendations, and Dr. Maidment, your accent's a little different than mine, and this room's really hard to hear. And so if you could provide, if you don't mind, what you said in writing to us, that would be great to have as a reference. These recommendations, if we did this, Texas would pay for it. The National Weather Service and another station along 706 miles. Could we coax them into doing that? And if we did the combination of these, would we have some pretty good, accurate forecasting? Somebody just say yes or no.
You're asking if
There's some
all those
recommendations.
things were funded.
Here's some recommendations. I'm not a meteorologist. Maybe I desire to be one day. I like to read about weather. But we have the National Weather Service here, and not having anything on a 706-mile distance. We have these recommendations from y'all.
Right.
Would the combination of those give us better forecasting?
On average, absolutely.
Okay. And so when we talk about costs and things like this, what are we talking about here on this Texas solution?
If all those recommendations were followed and it was scaled as it's shown in those images, you're talking about $20 million or so for that.
Okay. Did you give me a number there? Like
$20 million.
20 million?
Yes.
That is not very much money. And and what I would recommend to Chairman, if you're carrying this bill or whatever, sometimes we form committees and we take a long time. I don't care if we form a committee or not, but Texas is wealthy enough to spend $20 million to have better mapping. We can work with the National Weather Service to come up with another, I think between 706 miles, we're a huge state. And the combination of that would give us better forecasting, which we talked about a great deal in the last hearing. Would y'all all agree? And we can do this and we can coordinate it. And then after we have that really good information, it's who gets and disseminates that information. Because what I have learned in looking at all these timelines, and I say this for all the parents who have lost children, at 1:14, the warning goes out. Really, they had minutes if you're on the South Fork, because the gentleman that testified here, who was a mile below Mystic, said he woke up at 2:40. I'm not going back in my notes, but 2:40. By 3:05, he said, we need to leave. And at that point, the water was around his house. He'd never seen that, and they've had that property since 1930s, I believe. And his estimation was at that point it was 41 feet. Guys, the emergency warning didn't go out until after 4 a.m. We weren't even close for those along that portion of the Guadalupe. So I think it's incumbent upon us to look at those timelines, to heed that, and to do better. And like if flooding happens at 3 inches, which we heard in testimony in Austin, my goodness, how badly did we miss on this? It really is a life and death issue.
Yeah, one of the things that was mentioned multiple times up here was this reporting time interval, and the fact that it needs to be, the reporting intervals need to be very quick on these measurements, because the forecasters need the information. In the heat of the moment, they need the information, and when minutes matter, we don't need to be waiting 30 minutes to get a report. We need it every 5 minutes, or even less in cases.
Agree, and if you travel out to hunt, you realize that this is a 2-lane highway, a very narrow highway. There was no way you could evacuate unless you had started at earlier on July 3rd, way earlier when you're talking about a holiday weekend. So it really was the warning to seek higher ground and seek it now. Do y'all agree?
Yes.
Yes.
Lessons learned, we need to put it into action. Doctor, do you have something to say?
Yes, John Nielsen, Gavin. I want to mention the observational recommendations we're talking less than $1 million, and the federal government would pay for part of them through the National Mesonet Program, which already helps support the mesonets that we have heard about already.
Bingo, thank you.
Representative Martinez.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And first of all, Dr. Guthrie, thank you. Thank you very much, because this has absolutely answered some questions I had last week. And when I was asking about getting historical data, this actually answered a lot of the questions. I was told that that was forecasting, and it's not, because when you accumulate historical data over the years, would this be able, by what you're showing us here today, would that be able to tell locals when they're working on a flood mitigation plan on what the impacts are in those certain areas by the amount of rainfall that has been accumulated on that data?
The information would be useful for that purpose.
So it would be available, and they could do that. And then another thing that I was looking at, and I kept on kind of trying to find answers for this, and I got on the website, the Interagency Flood Risk Management website, which is actually very helpful. And I looked up Kerrville, and I looked up the Rio Grande Valley, and if there were gauges and additional gauges, because this also shows us forecasting on it as well. And for example, right here it says the streams rising and falling. This is available to the public as well, right? So if they have any type of, if they want to have some warning devices, would this be able to be utilized? Because here it says water level rising above a foot an hour, water level rising above 2 feet an hour. So it's kind of giving you that, and then it's showing you in different areas where the low water crossings are, where not to go. I mean, it's giving you a lot of data. And is this data on that flood decision support toolbox, is this in real time?
I am not familiar with the flood decision support toolbox.
Okay. Well, it shows Water Development Board on it.
I'm sorry,
why-
that's our flood division, so I'm just not.
Yeah.
I'm
So,
in
but this
surface
is
water.
right. Go ahead.
Oh, I just said I'm in the surface water division, so we don't, the only way we touch flood is with the text mesonet network and our USGS flood gauges.
Okay. So I'm assuming that this is also kind of linked to maybe the National Weather Service and obtaining the data from gauges that through the flows of rivers and creeks and on lakes. And that's what I'm assuming it's picking up here. And then I go over and I look at the text mesonet, and that's also giving us some forecasting data on rainfall and the amount of rain that's falling. Am I correct in?
Correct. It's showing observed rainfall data that's being collected by rain gauges, but there's also some information about forecast warnings and other information on the website as well.
Okay, wonderful. So if we're gathering all this data and we want to say in 2018, let's say one of the cities wants to find out what the impacts are so that way they could have a flood mitigation plan. And they want to figure that out and say, okay, listen, I need to figure out how much rain fell in these areas during this rainstorm and the ones that were impacted the most and by the rise and fall of the water, and how should I invest my money for flood mitigation. You all would have that data compiled so that they could be able to do that. Is that correct?
The data would be available at Synoptic, and there'd be other sources probably available for that consultant or researcher to use to do that work.
Wonderful. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Senator Campbell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, there's a lot of knowledge sitting there, in 7 people. With all your knowledge, with the models, are they just theoretical? Have they been measured? Did you use any of the knowledge you have or the models that you've talked about or patterns that you've talked about on this storm that we just had? Or is it just something you've got to pay for and have put in place? Any of you? Not a long answer, just a...
Let me try to answer that. So the floodplain map library approach that we've been talking about in Houston, we think directly applicable here in the Guadalupe Valley. What it does is it takes measured 15-minute radar data across the whole watershed area.
Did y'all do that this time?
Say it again?
Did y'all use it this time?
Yeah, it comes from the National Weather Service, and it gets ground truth, and it's used. We use it in Houston.
What did you do with the information? Would it have helped? Did you share it with anybody?
We didn't have it
No, you didn't have it.
at the time of the flood. We just ran this just recently.
After, okay.
Yeah,
All right.
it wasn't operational at the time. We ran it, and it's in the handouts. You'll see the
saw
amounts
that.
there. It's very, very detailed, and it's very, very centered in the far upper end, where you see 6 inches of rain in about 3 hours, and so on.
Thank you for that.
Sure.
Of course, we'd want things to give us advanced warning, not back up. And I suppose the model, if I really looked at it, would do that.
Yes, the idea
Okay.
is that rain would then convert to those floodplain maps, and it would provide that information downstream. Yes.
Dynamically, just as it's happening.
Yes, as a
Okay,
function of
thank
time.
you.
Yes.
Thank you. And then, to any of you, or maybe John, with Tatum, was there any cloud seeding going on? That may sound kind of far out there, but was there any cloud seeding any days before this flood?
I don't have any knowledge of the cloud seeding. I know that cloud seeding does go on. Even if it were, that would not have really significantly contributed to the flooding.
Okay. Thank you. Yes, sir.
John Nielsen Gammon. There was cloud seeding on July 2nd in Karnes County, I understand it. I
I'm
ran
sorry,
a
can
trajectory
you-
model, and
Can you just speak maybe a little slower and louder in the
Yeah.
mic?
There was cloud seeding in Karnes County in July 2nd. I ran a trajectory model, and the air that was seeded would have ended up in Nebraska or South Dakota by the time of the flood.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Verdell.
Thank you, Chairman King. Just a couple quick questions again. Y'all are mentioning like the modeling maps. Are y'all familiar with the North Carolina flood inundation map? Have y'all seen that one?
Yes, I'm aware of that.
Okay, and do we have anything like that in Texas that an emergency manager or anybody can go to right now to basically see, for those who aren't familiar with the map, you can go to it, you can put in how much rain you expect or the height of the water, and it will map out where the flooding is. It lets emergency management know what roads to shut down, what buildings are touched. It'll actually even calculate the amount of damage that the buildings in the area will receive from that. Do we have anything like that in Texas?
Yes, the Flood Decision Support Toolbox that we've been discussing is a similar system.
Okay, what's that name again?
The Flood Decision Support Toolbox.
Flood decision.
That does a similar system to the North Carolina.
Okay, and do we have access to that now?
Yes, we do.
Okay, copy that, thank you. And then next question, which is just kind of a Forrest Gump question. So sometimes technology can be, I made sure I wrote this down so I didn't mess it up. Sometimes too much technology can become a hindrance and we begin to rely less on common sense. I know you mentioned that it's hard to take out the human factor that happens. If we look back at data over 20 or 40 years, and we spent billions of dollars on this technology, y'all have dedicated your lives to saving people, which we greatly appreciate. Would you say that we're safer today than even 20 or 40 years ago related to flash floods or anything like that?
I think we are safer, but we are getting bigger floods.
Yep.
There's no question about that, but I think we're definitely safer. There's so much information out there. There's so much gauging, and there are these model development tools available on the iPhone for warning. So it's gotten better. It's just we've got to work on that communication link. That is the missing link right now. We've got to make sure that there are folks on the ground, boots on the ground, emergency managers, mayors, folks in charge that get that information in
Yes,
a
sir.
useful way.
I appreciate you bringing that point up. I think that's the most important point to know.
Most important. Yes.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
So I served during Hurricane Harvey in the State Operations Center. For the first 2 days of Harvey, we really didn't know much about what was going on at all. So we had resources coming in from all over the country, and they were asking, how do I deploy? Do I deploy from Sealy? Do I deploy from Conroe? Do I fly in from San Antonio? We couldn't really respond. As time went on, the number of maps that were produced increased until there was a deluge. We were completely overwhelmed. What we needed at the time was one water map across the whole state. What's going on now? What's going on 7 o'clock tonight? What's going on 7 o'clock tomorrow morning? That did not exist in 2014, but it is about to exist now. Now that's a critical step forward. Right? What that means is that the response community, Chief Tidd and TDM Zone, can see this water situation at the State Operations Centre as the people are seeing it on the ground where they are. Now that is a huge step forward.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Thank you all for y'all's time, too. Appreciate it.
Senator Schwartner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is to Dr. Bediant, Dr. Fang. I'm referencing this, your handout from Rice Engineering Computing. Just to make it perfectly clear, on the back page, Dr. Torres is, who's not part of the panel, but he's gauge, design, and placement. What I care about most is the last line of defense before something tragic occurs at headwaters, which appears to be what happened here, without the ability to contact the county judge and get them up and get them to order to higher ground, for instance. It has to be automatic, it seems like, at headwaters of various rivers. Does the technology exist to measure the rise in a river, either through ultrasound, radar, or just simple buoy gauge, and have it remotely go to a siren that's battery powered, that goes off when a certain level of river rise occurs within a certain amount of time? Can y'all please just say yes or no to that?
Yes, that technology exists. You can turn lights on. You could set it up for the alarm to go off.
And how much is it? It depends on how many gauges and sirens and things, but I mean, in general, what is kind of it seems like a fairly basic kind of last minute line defense, something serious is about to occur. What does that cost? Is it installed across the state anywhere?
One of our strong recommendations was to add about 20 or 25 gauges into the Guadalupe Basin, and these can be put in easily in the range of $10,000 to $20,000. Remember, you've got to build these. If you're putting them against low water crossings or against bridges, you've got to build them so they withstand the onslaught of about a 30-foot wave. Right?
And again, are they installed in any river basin at the headwaters in the state that you're aware of, that we could look at, or people that we're going to hire look at as a state? And go,
oh yeah, they're
all over.
There are basins that have them all throughout the basin. Yeah,
and Dr. Torres does this type of work. Who's not here? And he's the guy that he designs them, I guess, gauges. So
he's in the audience. He's right back
well,
there.
thank you for your engineering.
Yes, thank you for your question.
Sir, if the network of 80 radar gauges that I was talking about were extended to 800, I believe that would provide a base level of coverage across the state and a densified coverage in the hill country. The capital cost of that would be about $7 million, and there would be ongoing O&M costs.
Okay. Representative Moody.
Thank you very much. I have a couple questions for Dr. Nielsen-Gammon. And I appreciate everybody's testimony. I think it's very helpful. I mean, I think drilling down into the testimony you've offered is going to help create guideposts for us going forward. As we've had the hearings and taken up witnesses, I've heard over and over again, multiple times, we've never seen anything like this, we've never seen anything like this, and I think we're conflating that into the level of, maybe the level of destruction and loss of life in this incident. And I was looking through page 3 and 4 of the written testimony you provided us, where you've listed out events in this area that, in your words, rivaled or exceeded what happened on the 4th. So I just want to kind of crystallize that, because the conditions that can create this type of destruction have been seen. And in fact, your bolded statement at the end of this paragraph is, based on you counting these events, we can expect a 35-inch rainstorm somewhere in the area, an average of every 2 decades. Can you help me dig into how these instances, where they occurred, population? I mean, do you have that kind of data too? Because I think we're conflating the level of loss of life and the conditions that could exist. So are these examples you've listed here, are these conditions that, if in a populated area like this, could create the same or similar effect, loss of life and destruction of property?
Yes, John Nielsen Gammon, thank you for your question. It depends upon a variety of circumstances. So, for example, in the 1932 flood, cabins that housed campers in the South Fork were destroyed, but there was no loss of life, and the camp managers reported that was because the flood happened during the daytime and they could see what was going on and they could evacuate safely. So this flood was particularly damaging in terms of loss of life because of the time it occurred and the difficulty for people to understand what was going on. Similar rainfall totals were happening anywhere, and we have to be. The next flood's not going to be, hopefully, in this river valley. Is going to be another one nearby somewhere, and we have to be prepared for all of those. Part of the problem is people not having seen something like this before. I've seen some interesting technology looking at storm surges, where you basically can do a three-dimensional picture of, like, Google Maps of the terrain and show how high a flood would be and what it would actually look like. And that has a bigger impact than a flood map does on people's perception of what's possible.
No, and I think that's what's important, because I think when we talk about we never see anything like this, right, there was a number of, and I think we had some reports in our first hearing, there were a number of factors that were very unique to this that really exacerbated the damage, the destruction, the devastation. But I think what your data tells us here is, we've been speaking in terms of 100 years, 500 years, 1,000 years. These are conditions that exist more frequently than that, and just maybe don't have those other factors. And that's just a matter of, I'm not going to say chance, but it is a matter of those things not kind of coming together at the same time. And so when we're looking at this, I think that's what the urgency is. And I hope that people drill down into the data that you provided. And I think this data, if we use this data, and from all of you actually, right, we have amazing tools available to us. The pivot forward from there, and I know we have someone from the Water Development Board, and kind of mirroring off what Vice Chair Martinez talked about, the game plan going forward, right? That data informs where the risk is. I'm looking at the 300-page report from 2023 on the flood plan for this region. That's got a number of deficiencies, it's got a number of ideas, it's got a number of concepts, and I think what we need to do is figure out how the data informs that better, and then as policymakers and as those who look at budgets, right, Water Development Board exists to identify those things. We also task them with opportunities to fund those and figuring out how to triage that, because these are events that are going to happen in our mind. We can't push that out to 100, 500 years. Those are metrics we use for convenience of understanding these events. But this is going to happen, and triaging this into the highest risk areas, because those are all laid out. We have it. We have it all. And this event is going to help better inform those things. And so, not a question, but as we work forward, this is a group of folks that We need to figure out how to harness that and put that into action in communities like that. And it becomes a funding question at some point, and how we prioritize things. And that's where really the complex part of our job is going to come into play. What do we put into statute that says, here's how we want this to unfold? Because 20, 30 years down the road, we do not want this type of tragic event to this level of devastation when we had a plan on paper and we just didn't fund it. And so I want to thank you all for the work you do. And I want to thank the prescient Governor Briscoe for creating state climatologists here in Texas, because it is an office that we should utilize more in the work that we do going forward, because this is not going to slow down. Thank you.
Senator Mendez.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To the whole panel, thank you. Dr. Bedian and Dr. Fang, your partner is Dr. Torres?
Yes.
I wish he would be on the panel with you, but maybe you can help answer for him. He's the expert, and we've established he's installed over 60 flood gauges in the state of Texas, correct? So these are remote. These they can tell the early flood warning systems, automatic activation. Is there the technology? Is it available? Because I've heard from people, well, the sirens may not work because we can't hear them inside. Here's the thing. What do most people already have inside their homes to detect something while they're sleeping? Can you answer that question? If you have a fire in your home, do most people not have a smoke detector? Is there the technology available that in the event of a flood, that if you had homes in a floodplain, that this technology could say, the alarm could go off and could say, go to higher ground now? Is that technology available?
Senator, let me give a first step right here. I would say yes. First one, cell phone service is right there. I mean, it actually can be easily really tapping into this decision, and for the people sign up, I mean, they will be able to receive those warning timely.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, I'm thinking about the camps of these children. They didn't have their cell phones with them. They didn't let the children have them in there. So if they'd had something in these bunks and the alarm starts going off, the counselors get up and say, move to higher ground now, and the alarm's going off, you can't ignore that.
I would say, I mean, such a device trigger off the warning. It's very feasible. I mean, it's right there too. And based on what I talked to Dr. Torres, and he mentioned about the data feed and the signal being transmitted could also go on the satellite. So that will be, I will be the second channel to make the communication smooth.
Well, I mean, and this is not something you need in every home in America. You just need it in the ones that are in these flood alleys.
I totally agree with you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. All right, I'm going to try to make sure everybody leaves here with a cohesive message.
I don't know why.
First of all, Water Development Board, who do you give your data to? Who are beneficiaries? Is it Rice and those guys? Who uses it for modeling?
Yes, Carly Guthrie, Texas Water Development Board. Our data, at least talking about the text mesonet data, because we have lots of different types of data, as you know. Text mesonet data is available for public use, so through the Synoptic Public Benefit Corporation. So our data is delivered to them, and then it's available.
So that's the flood decision tool? No,
sir. That is just a database that houses data from Texas Water Development Board, West Texas Mesonet, other weather and similar networks can report their data to that, and that is then available to whoever wants to use it, including the National Weather Service.
You're a warehouse and people can grab it?
It's not our warehouse, but similar.
Okay, all right. So I want to make sure, and I don't understand all of this, so there was multiple concepts presented. You know, the North Carolina model, which is kind of on the end there, that's kind of been out there. An individual came by and espoused the benefits of it, and it sounds really cool stuff, and I think it is something that's a consideration. You guys are the modelers, correct?
Yes, we are.
And then text talking about radar, is that unique in that it's kind of a newer...
That's standard operating procedure these days.
Is the radar kind of unique? what Tech is talking about. Is that a unique?
It's been around for
Let me
15
ask it
years.
this way. Is it in use in Texas today?
Yes, extensively.
Clarify, because I was thinking it was different.
It is different. What we're proposing is different. So you have S-band systems sitting in New Braunfels and St. Angelo, et cetera, but they're at great distance from the headwaters regions in, for instance, western Kerr County. So what we're talking about is integrating higher resolution systems, different types of systems that are closer to the headwaters region to be able to paint much more detail in terms of that map. So you'll still get a map of rainfall, but it's going to have a much more higher level of detail to be able to pinpoint what corners of that basin, what streams are being impacted by certain rainfall.
So under your method, I know you gave me some detail. You were talking 75 new gauges and 35 of those radar components, or 65? I don't remember.
No. We were talking about if we were going to fill the gaps in the hill country with Texas high-quality weather stations, we identified about 36 gaps, I believe it was. There were only 4 radars involved.
4
in that-
radars,
in that
36
area.
gaps in the hill country, but
Yeah.
you were covering a bigger area. I know Water Development Board is currently in expansion, so that would be a complementary y'all wouldn't duplicate. Y'all would make sure you wouldn't overlap there. This information ends up in your world for modeling, correct? So y'all take what would come off of a better data set. So you're not in competition. You develop it. You got a better granularity. You guys can use it differently.
Absolutely correct.
So
yes.
you're all working together. And Water Development Board's in your world. They're talking about expansion of gauges, or Messinette tires both, I guess, and y'all are too. So I kind of like the idea of every one of y'all in the same room and getting a game plan to come back. So I know the number was named down there, and then another number was named as far as dollar cost, but it did include gauges. What I have heard across the board all day long, is there anybody in disagreement that we need more gauge? Everybody thinks we need more gauges. Is that a fair statement?
Yes.
All right, good. All right, I don't have anything else, members. Is that? Guys, we could have had y'all the first one probably last week and saved a lot of trouble. It just kind of got a legs on its own, but I appreciate you. I know a lot of y'all are out of town, and you know it's going to be midnight by the time we get out of here. So, but I appreciate y'all hanging around. It's very valuable. But we will figure a way how to coordinate, because I don't think there's one silver bullet. I think all of it provides extra benefits that we don't have today. I will ask this last question. I was told this may give us a better opportunity to predict with some more specificity as to where a rain bomb might occur. It may hone it into where you can get a little closer with. The vortex looks like it's going to form, and we think it can be in this little region instead of we don't know. Is that a fair statement?
John Nielsen Gammon. Yes, the first statement. It also can tell you where it's going to move next.
Okay, good. That's all I need to know. Appreciate it. Yes.
If I may, Nick Fan. So if we can take the data from John, and put it into the real-time flood warning system, yes, the really you can maximize the benefit in terms of provide a warning message earlier. Yes.
Yeah. Well, I think this gentleman here that just spoke, that's got the accent, I don't know from where, said it best. The best data in the world with a warning that has no action plan, and I said where we're going to go with the action plan today. If you live in this region and you get a flood warning, you're going to higher ground. Then if y'all are wrong, it don't matter. If you're right, then it didn't matter, right? We just got to get them out of harm's way. Thank you.
Thanks for the invite. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Hey, if y'all have a few minutes, my director, and if the House component, if Megan or somebody wants around, go back in here in the back room and coordinate a time when we're on a little bit of a time crunch here. You know, we've got a special session ending in a couple weeks, but I would really like to know a plan of action as far as getting you guys together on the same page so that we don't waste money, but we get where we want to be, and let me know what it'd run.
Been awesome.
Yeah, he's going here. The big guy, right there. All right, Chair is going to call up the next panel of witnesses, public witnesses. Paul Chatelain. Paul Chatelain, Lauren Pena, Michael Horns, Richard Asner, Man, I got somebody that looks like a heart. Spearheart or Spear. It may be William Spearheart. Looks like Spearhart. Lives, well, I won't say where. Alva Zalori. Ava. Renee DeReese. who are you, ma'am?
Lauren Pena.
You're Lauren Pena, okay?
Yes, sir.
Getting down to the bottom here. Renee DeReese. You're here? All right. Come on up. Mark Means. I'm going to run through these real quick again. Okay, I'll call them all out. Shannon Donahue. Morton Baird III. Raymond Howard Jr. Come on up, sir. Dr. Laura Presley, I saw her sitting out there. She's in the wrong room, wrong committee. Michael Silverman. Brian Truitt. Come on up, Miss Truitt. Henry Ortego. Ryan Logue. Michael Watts. Not here. He's coming. Okay. Pamela Hart. Brian Olenek. Come on up, sir. Sheila Hemphill, have you gone? I saw you earlier. She's in the wrong committee, wrong city. Sheila Hemphill. She'll be late. James Jackson. James Speaker. Is it you? What is your name? I've got two names here. I've got a James Speaker and a James Jackson. Okay. Scratch through the other guy. All right, that's got a full panel. I didn't get to that one. We'll get her later. All right, yeah, okay. All right, let's start with you, Ms. Presley, on this end. Let's go this way. You got 3 minutes.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Senator Perry and Representative King. I'm Dr. Laura Presley, PhD. Have a PhD in chemistry and physics from the UT Austin. I've spent 17 years managing engineering teams in the semiconductor industry. I have 4 patents, and I've managed lean manufacturing teams. And I understand from a technical standpoint and from a policy standpoint what needs to happen to save lives. Like most of us, I was devastated with the loss of life of these children here in Kerr County. I spent hours praying, hoping they would be found. And in the prayer, on my knees, and I recommend that, praying on your knees when you really want something bad from the Lord put something on my heart. And the fact is, there is not a discrete, consistent flood risk scale terminology or system, Senator Perry. You love systems, so do I. I'm a systems person. Similar to hurricanes, Senator Colhorst, there's threat levels, 1 through 5. We do not have that for floods warning systems. Isn't that obvious? That's what the Lord put on my heart. So this is why I'm here, Senator Perry, in the wrong committee, because he put this on my heart to tell you guys this. We heard up here, the guy that was sitting right here, his first name was John, I don't remember his last name. All throughout today, we've heard terminology that's not discrete and not specific. The guy sitting here said, oh, there was a serious flood risk on July 3rd. We've heard flash flood, watch, warning, emergency. We need grade levels. We need a numbering system. We need you as lawmakers and policymakers to require that for the state of Texas. Period. Done deal. Okay? Pretty obvious. Now, when you define those levels, the next step is that you define in your policy and in these bills and in their laws what the county officials have to do at a minimum standard, Senator Perry. Now we have a system that's required what they are to do. We had Andy Brown sit up here and say there was a one guy at NOAA who left and everything in Travis County was on that man's shoulders. I say no. We don't use human glue. And nobody up here called him on it. I was in shock that not one of you guys, and I love you. Many of you I know very
Ms.
well.
Presley, you're going to have to wrap it up
Okay.
real quick.
All right. So I'm telling you, a system, numbering system, you guys define what the minimum standards are, and when the county officials don't do it, make a penalty, civil penalty, and also you could also allow us to recall those officials.
Thank you.
Okay, I want you to think about that.
Just an insider baseball. Several of these individuals testifying in front of this committee today are regulars in Austin on other issues. So that's why when we say you're in the wrong room, the wrong
I
committee.
know, you're teasing, I know that.
Yeah,
But the
teasing,
Lord
but it's
talked to
true.
me on this one, and he said,
Usually it's
go
election
tell him
and Terry.
this.
All right, sir,
Okay.
pick it up. Appreciate it. State your name, and you got 3 minutes.
You have the paper. There's a one
Yes,
more thing.
ma'am.
You have to let me say one more thing. There is actually a paper that was published in 2014 that you have that
Okay.
says we need discrete levels and we don't have them, and you need to do it.
All right.
Okay,
Thank
thank
you,
you.
Yes, thank you. My name is Ray Howard. I'm one of the city councilmen in Ingram, Texas, and I live right on the river, and I mean, I'm right there, and we were just high enough that it didn't come into our neighborhood, but I was right there where I could see campers going by with people screaming in it, and later on later on as the morning progressed, I was out there trying to do what I could do after I woke up. Well, let me start real quick. I, like everybody, got the warnings on my phone. The first one, I didn't do a dang thing about it. The second one, I turned on my phone, looked at the radar, and I could see that there was a cell sitting out over there, this South Fork, and it was just pumping out. And I was thinking, this could get bad. And I went back to sleep. The third one, I got up, opened up my front door, and it was water all the way across, 600 yards across. That's the only reason why our house didn't flood, is because the river gets real wide right there. That's the only reason why it didn't flood in my neighborhood. So later on, as it got a little lighter, I saw like a 13 or 14-year-old kid going by screaming for help. And I've been trained as a high water rescue person, but I'm dealing with stage 4 cancer. And I just don't have the lung capacity to do that anymore. I have barely enough to speak right now. So I saw this kid disappear. I couldn't do anything. What I am doing for the city of Ingram, I took it on my personal fight, is I am getting this system, this alarm system, this siren system. This thing not only puts off a siren's call, but it also has alert, a siren, inform. It'll tell the public around the 360 area what to do. If it's a tornado, stay inside. If it's flood, head to high ground. I'm fighting for this. I'm fighting for this for that little kid that I couldn't help. Now, when they were just talking about all the gauges and stuff. Mr. Torres, Dr. Torres, that was right there. You don't have to go through, what was it? what was it, 2:53 in the morning was the first 911 call. At 4 o'clock in the morning, they were getting wiped out in front of my house in the RV park. How long was that? That's an hour. That's an hour. All those people could still be alive right now. Every one of them. They might not have lost. They may have lost their RVs and stuff, but they'd still be alive. So, if you're interested about this system right here, this is what Ingram is going to put in. And I've already talked to Senator Flores.
Go ahead.
And we're gonna get this.
Finish it up there. I appreciate your service on your city council too. It's a labor of love. Go ahead, sir.
Hi, my name is Byron Olenek, Olenek Construction Incorporated. I'm a local contractor from Blanco, Texas, and I've been helping volunteer hauling off debris. Thank you for the members of the committee, my Senator Campbell. I'm proud to see my senator here representing our district. And for the people here speaking very bravely, I think being able to write things down longhand is very therapeutic and helpful for the critical thinking to get over the trauma that we've been through. I commend you for doing that. If we're here to talk about preventing the loss of life in the floods here today, then we're talking about banning all public and private weather modification and geoengineering in the state of Texas. During this special session, we can bring back SB 1154, which was introduced by Senator Hughes, which was left pending in committee, but we can be reintroduced to also include banning private operations, as well as amending criminal penalties for possession of investment or weather modification and geoengineering technology while owning a redevelopment contract, such as a 15-minute city that's being planned here in Kerrville, or a water permit down in Canyon Lake worth millions. What is geoengineering and weather modification? Well, we're more familiar with cloud seeding from silver iodide, but geoengineering requires us to expand our vocabulary. There is a thing called stratospheric aerosol injection, where aluminum, strontium, and barium are used as a conductive medium in the atmosphere. Ionospheric heating from very large, powerful phased array transmitters, such as HARP in Alaska. There's SuperDARN, neutrino ice cube, and then there's dual laser filamentation. There are phased array transmitters spread out through the NextRad network throughout the United States. And these things are able to use high voltage frequencies on these toxic metals to control storms, make it rain wherever anyone wants to make it rain. It's funded by the National Weather Service, by NOAA, and the U.S. Air Force. Layman's terms, if you've ever stuck a fork or aluminum in a microwave, you're basically creating a small storm. It's a disaster. Imagine that times 10,000. So now I have cards I can provide, and I have out there for geoengineeringwatch.org. Dane Wigington has been doing this for decades. He's a very valuable resource on this and can testify in committee. On a smaller scale, here in Texas, we have the South Texas Weather Modification Association. It's funded and operated by the Texas Department of Licensing and Regulation. They say on their website they were founded in '96. They started their first cloud seeding program on the Guadalupe River in '97. '98 flood went over the Guadalupe River Bridge on 281. The STWMA paid a private company to cloud seed the headwaters of the Guadalupe River 2 days prior to the flood of July 4th. You may have heard of Augusto Dorico, the CEO of Rainmaker Incorporated. He said, and quote, that he only put 60 grams of silver iodide in the clouds and it dissipated, and that it wouldn't have been there 2 days later. That's not entirely true. There are surfactants, which are soapy substances that can allow these metals to stay in the clouds for 2 days. So we don't need to be a meteorologist to understand there's something strange about a tropical storm running into a cyclone over the desert of Mexico, coming back to life with so much power that there's a red sprite you can see from space, and then rolling into Texas with an eye forming over dry land. That's not natural. And what I would say is that our solutions are pretty simple, is that we need to ban geoengineering. We need to publicly, privately, locally, state and federal in the state of Texas have some accountability, and that this is our notice of liability. We do not give implied or informed consent to any weather modification or geoengineering in the state, whether covert or permitted by law. So help us God, we do not consent.
All right, thanks, sir. State your name and who you're with.
Chairman Perry, Representative King, committee members, thank you for allowing my testimony. My name is James Jackson. I am from Bulverde, but I have a heart in Houston as well and other areas. I am a former Navy SEAL and belong to an organization called the SEAL Future Foundation, which is comprised of about 250 former Navy SEALs across Texas and about 2,000 across the country. I also represent a nonprofit called Valor Response, dedicated to disaster search and recovery. Over the weekend of July 5th and the following 3 weeks, we helped coordinate teams of highly trained volunteers who worked around the clock alongside game wardens, volunteer fire departments, police, and sheriff deputies during the recent recovery efforts. We rotated shifts across multiple locations, setting egos aside to serve the families of Kerr, Kendall, and Comal counties the best way we knew how, using every resource and ounce of skill available to us. To support the families of Mystic, and with the permission from local landowners, such as Mike Richardson and Centerpoint, who had testified earlier, we refused to be turned away, and in a couple instances, despite being threatened with potential arrest, perhaps in the confusion of the disaster, our fellow veteran volunteers remained steadfast to continue God's work and help the remaining families get closure. Our volunteer veteran teams, working alongside private industry partners, stepped in to canvass and scan large sections of the Guadalupe River banks from Hunt all the way down to the Comal County line, with everything we could find, including borrowed chainsaws, off-road ATVs, borrowed boats, borrowed earth-moving equipment. We carefully searched both above and below the water, inspecting submerged vehicles for victims while diving and mapping underwater debris fields that could be concealed, that could conceal victims. In addition, using a MS-1000 sonar system that was generously loaned to us by Oceaneering, and we borrowed a pontoon boat provided by the family of the last victim from Mystic, who are seeking closure in the search of their loved ones' remains. We were able to survey the entire New Lake Ingram and a portion of the Nimitz Lake in just 4 days to determine basically if there was any chance of remains there. And the imagery that we've captured will be soon available to Kerr County. In addition, our volunteers proactively developed a land recovery map solely from conversations and shared information between volunteers, because according to some of the families we spoke to, they were not receiving these details through other channels. As a result of these efforts, many volunteers were helpful in finding victims' remains, but the search still continues. So through these experiences, it's become clear that challenges are urgently needed. One of the main things that is most important in my testimony—
You need to finish that last thought up. Tell us the main
is
things.
the families must be informed first and fully to a timely and clear and location and date and time of their family's recovery. That is the main thing that the families wanted me to emphasize, because they're just not getting this information.
Yeah, and I would tell you from seeing what the DPS had put together, and I forgot the software platform, but they were very diligent at tracking and marking those spots so that the relatives could go back for memorial, other services and everything. But it was pretty impressive how they could just pinpoint the map. So they are tracking that extremely well. How they're finding those is they would start where their last known was, and they 20 miles down the way, but they would always know that connection, and they would make sure they pinpoint it. So they are doing a very good job of that. They had the actual software engineers came in on their own time and actually programmed to fit the river. So it's pretty impressive. And for a vendor, has had their software engineers internal to this center and actually modified that to be able to accomplish that goal. And thank you for what you do. Go ahead, sir.
I'm Michael Watts. I live on a ranch here in Kerr County, which is relevant only because it's 12 miles upstream on the Johnson Creek, which has everything to do with what you're talking about here. Before I tell you what I'm here to talk about, I do want to thank you. I'm one of the regulars. I've been in Austin for 26 years at hearings like this. This is by far the best hearing I have ever seen. So I congratulate each of you. You certainly earned your $600 a month. In my day job, I do mass disaster, usually followed by 12 hours ago, I wrote down 7 things that I've learned in sitting through hearings like this in Florida, Louisiana, California, Oregon, and New Mexico. Number one, in addition to what you heard from the meteorologist, which to me was the best part of this, the more of those you have, the better wildfire prevention you have as well. So you get a 2-for-1. But the 7 things I was going to suggest is the gentleman that suggested flood control dams. In 2009, I think Representative Darby and maybe Senator Menendez were the only ones on this committee that were there. The legislature created the Flood Control Grant Program, which allows the maintenance of dams for flood control. All you got to do is tinker with that, and you can add dams if you want to. Number 2, more river and creek gauges. I wrote this 12 hours ago. I think everybody knows that now. More gauges. That's what happened after the 2015 floods in Wimberley. $6.8 million went out. They've got more gauges. I think the most important witness you heard from is Dr. Megmick. That technology exists, velocity and water level gauges. All you got to do is put them upstream. Number 3. Phones and siren warnings, not just phone text, for all the reasons you've heard about. Phones are off, phones don't work, warnings are too frequent, people don't pay attention to them. Sirens would have saved lives. I agree with the sheriff, it may not have had enough time for the girls at Camp Mystic, but everybody downstream at the Heart of Hills, the RV Park, Texas Hill Country would be here today if there was a siren. Number 4, take out the human link between your gauges that you're now going to put upstream and the sirens that need to alert. We have things called airbags. Every switch there is has an input, a decision, and an output. Those gauges can do the same thing instantaneously and activate gauges as soon as your algorithm says it's doing so. And you don't have to try to hunt down somebody who's sick or asleep or out of town. Number 5. Good evacuation plans are key. I have watched wildfire after wildfire after wildfire, one way out, failure to train, 85 people killed in Northern California, 102 people in Maui. It would happen here, given what we've got. Number 6, the first responder communications equipment. I'm going to make my pitch for you guys to reconsider Chairman King's bill, House Bill 13. It needs to get passed. I know it costs a lot of money, but it's the only statewide program that's going to fix this. Otherwise, you're going to be playing whack-a-mole from county to county to county. Lastly, volunteer efforts. I would just commend 2 people for you when you're having your legislative hearings. One of them is Chase Spencer with Mercy Gate Ministries here in Hunt, and the second is Haley Lehrman at the Hunt store. They were kind of the ex officio moving people around stuff, and you really need to hear both their stories because your instincts are all right. If we can get some sort of a coordination on this. And then lastly, I would just say this.
Yep. Okay,
Last thought. Only 2 of you were on the House State Affairs Committee, Representative Darby and the chairman. On March 31st, 4 months ago today, there was a full day of testimony, including about House Bill 13, and I would encourage the chair to incorporate that transcript into this record so not only do the rest of you have it, but everybody in the legislature has it because that bill's part of what needs to be passed. Thank you.
You know, on the sirens real quick, Lubbock, Texas put in 45 sirens. It's been probably 3 or 4 years ago. Cost them $1 million. It has battery backup. They test them once a month. They work like a charm. We're a 135 square mile city.
My deer feeders run off the same battery.
Surely we can put enough sirens around these hills on a whole lot smaller footprint.
Yes, sir.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Chairman and legislators, for being here all this long, long day. I'm Renee DeReese. I'm a flood volunteer who experienced the volunteer disconnection many have noted. I'm a trauma nurse of 33 years, director of a nursing company nationwide, Schreiner University and University of Texas graduate, a native of Texas, descendant from citizens of the Republic of Texas. While volunteering in Hunt, I discussed my experiences and possible solutions with Governor Abbott. He asked that I share these thoughts with you, so here I sit today. I hope my tenacity in coming to Austin last week and then being here all day demonstrates my commitment to contribute something worthwhile. I really do care, and I know you do too. I spent a significant portion of my life here. I learned as a child to swim in the Guadalupe near Camp Mystic, a place that became my other church without a steeple, where I returned often to renew my spirit. This time I came home from work losing a lucrative work contract. I turned it down to help as a volunteer. I'm here to use the education I gained here at Schreiner and continued at UT, and I'm hoping to help rebuild lives and restore the peace and preserve the sacred place and restore confidence in our hill country for generations to come. Governor Abbott, President Trump and all of you took immediate and sustained action. For next steps in whatever capacity, volunteer or otherwise, I stand for my Texas family. I shared with Governor Abbott that we need to better coordinate between volunteers and state. That's been repeatedly noted today. Other high-risk areas include rescue route maps that are accessible online in most coastal areas. Emergency communication has already been discussed. GPS alarm armbands, especially for campers and organized parks and programs. They are used often in the hospital for our babies. Escape routes, camp rafts, emergency vehicles, and trauma kits set up, modeled by hospitals and airline standards and reviewed by government officials. State standards of legislation to enforce the safety measures, including water safety training and certified instructors at camps, and safety information readily available. From my medical experience, we urgently need to address the emotional toll for kids, families, and volunteers. Of note, many volunteers bravely faced but weren't trained to face trauma like I was. They need support as well. There's great online counseling programs that can be resourced most anywhere, and I can rally support and organization for that. As for future camp water safety, I've partnered with the Miss Tristan Foundation, a San Antonio-based water safety nonprofit born from tragedy to save lives. We're ready to support with expertise, training, and resources, as we do with the YMCA and public schools in San Antonio. We Texans carry grit, faith, courage, and our family as Texans with our special kind of strength, and we are a model of unity in a fractured world. I hope they learn from us around the world how unity and love and faith conquers all as they watch our exceptional recovery. It is up to all of us to act now so no Texan loses another life, home, or even hill country heritage because we delayed. Finally, I ask you all to help us who want to volunteer. Let me use the education I gained right here in Kerrville as a medical professional and in management, and follow my heart to help the best people I've ever met on this planet, my fellow Texas family by heritage.
Thank you, ma'am. Appreciate
There
you.
are plenty more like us to stand and
hear
ready
you.
to help.
Thank you for that. Let's go ahead.
Hello, my name is Lauren Pena. I am a pro se litigant in a federal case against the City of Austin and the Housing Authority of the City of Austin. I'm here today because I want to raise awareness for some pretty serious situations that are going on. I live in a HUD property, and they are not following ADA compliance. We have elderly and disabled and veterans that are living in higher story floors because they have gentrified the projects. And so after we had this emergency happen, I went and I looked into the FEMA flood maps, and there are several HUD properties that are located in the FEMA flood zones. And so I'm just here today because I want to raise awareness that the city cannot even take care of the buildings that they have now. We need to ensure when they gentrify the next projects that are located in flood zones that they're going to follow the ADA compliance, and they're going to ensure that there are not going to be people trapped in the upper floors, because for 5 weeks the people in my building couldn't even leave to get food or groceries because the elevator didn't work and they were in wheelchairs. And so, like I said, I'm just here today to raise awareness. I think that we really need to start implementing some pretty tough fines on these properties because they're not paying taxes in the first place. And like I said, there are some that are in flood zones and they're going to be gentrified. And additionally, I'd really just like you guys to take a look at these properties. They're not being managed the way they're supposed to be managed. They're not the same as they were when they were traditional housing projects. So thank you so much for your time. I'd be happy to answer any questions. But again, this is a really serious situation. The gentrification of public housing is detrimental to society.
Go ahead, sir, on the end there.
She's quick.
Well, she used her public testimony. It wasn't about tonight, but that's okay. Move that. You get on. Well, she just yielded her time. There you go.
My name is Brian Truitt. My family's been here since 1876, and God, I love this place. All right. First thing I want to mention is I know the Hill Country very well. I know Camp Mystic very well, and I know the family very well. All right. Now, one of the things I wish to mention is that I sincerely wish that you do get the services of a dadgum good geologist and learn, pardon me, what the rock structure is out at Mystic and in the Texas Hill Country. There's two main types of rock out there. Limestone of various types and density. And one of those densities sits on top of Camp Mystic. And it is a very porous limestone. And another limestone that is very prevalent out here is one that absorbs water like crazy. Okay? The other major stone that is found in the hill country is slate, and it's like concrete. Well, the problem there being is that the waterway down the valley of where Camp Mystic is made up of those two stones. And unfortunately, Camp Mystic is the one with the limestone. But so is the canyon. And that is a real problem out there, and has been for years. When they try to build new properties, new items, new buildings on the camp, they really have a problem with that limestone. But so does all of the hill country. Another thing is it really needs attention in this matter and in this whole world of what you're talking about, because how big the area is of limestone throughout all this area. Okay. Now, I'm going to touch on another subject. I have 30 years of emergency management. I also have 15 years of working with camps. So I'm going to just make a couple of points on camps, and then I'm out of here, okay? Love all of you, but now, first...
Your time is up, but I'm going to ask you a question.
Yes, sir.
What would you like to tell us about the camps?
That's what I'm doing right now.
Okay, I just want to make sure.
And I'd like to talk to Ms. Johnson about it.
You can talk to Ms. Johnson off mic unless it's something to do with the camps. All right.
All right. For the camps, Camp Mystic has an emergency management program, and they have had for years. The problem with the program of all of the camps, I've worked, because I've also taught hunter education in girl camps for 15 years, and it's an honor to do it. But the problem is that only the directors of the camp know what the emergency management program is. I've never seen one camp to have just for the counselors, because the counselors turn over, right? They're not there the same counselors every year. But they don't give any training on an emergency management plan to the counselors. And I'm not talking about giving them a copy of it and sending them into the boardroom.
So they need to train their counselors.
They need to train
every year.
Badly.
Okay. What's your next point?
Okay. The next point is there's a lot of camps out there that do not have adequate fire protection, like fire extinguishers, even the small ones in cabins, on the wall. That's ludicrous.
So how do they pass a fire inspection from the fire department?
Okay. Every year, when the camps are getting ready to set up, they go through and they check every one of those cabins. But they don't check for fire protection, like they should, have fire detectors. Not every camp has fire detectors, folks. Now, the ones out here in the hill country that are conscientious do, but I also do church camps, and they don't. So there's camps out there that are just wide open. You can't manage these youngsters that way.
Do you have another point?
Okay, one more point.
There you go.
The smoke, the fire thing, but the other point is they don't really provide the parents the information they need to have about what the camp has to have in the cabins to make the cabins safe.
Yep.
They truly do not. And I'm thinking of a Boy Scout camp that don't. Boy, is that bad English. That do not do that type of thing. And what you're doing is that you're putting these young people in.
I appreciate, do you have any more points? Because after looking at where they're regulated and the ability to get waivers around it, and then the lack of compliance because of it, you're making a point that we need to follow up and make changes in the code on. So we're on that. I appreciate your service, and thank you for that.
There's not a, and I'm not happy with the way that the directors handle this subject.
Yeah, first of all, I don't know how you wouldn't have a fire extinguisher in there. I can understand maybe they were grandfathered on fire alarms, but we'll go through this. But I'm just telling you, they're regulated in a very weird place, and they kind of put it there, I think, to hide it. And a lot of these camps over the years have gotten waivers for a lot of things that we as members would just assume that's just common sense you would do. So you're raising a point very clearly. Thank you for hanging in here all day to do that.
Mr. Burdell.
Mr. True, if you don't mind having a seat real quick. Sorry.
You got another question?
I know you went out of here pretty quickly. I want to let you know that there is a bill that has already been drafted. It hasn't been filed yet, and it focuses on what you're talking about, and it's requiring evacuation routes to be placed in the cabins. It's requiring reflective life jackets to be in those cabins, and among other things. So I just want you to know that is on our radar, and at some point that bill will be filed, and you'll have the chance to come testify for that bill if you would like to. So I just want to give you that heads up.
No exercises either to teach the campers where to go with the camp with the council.
Yes, sir. Yeah, and so those are being looked at. I just wanted you to know that. Mr. Watts, thank you for very straightforward testimony. I appreciate that a lot. That got a lot of information across very quickly.
Thanks,
and then in the green shirt, I'm sorry, I didn't catch your name earlier.
Byron Olenek.
Byron, I just wanted you to know I had some constituents ask me to file a bill this session, so I did file a bill that's a prohibition on weather modification. It did get a hearing. It didn't go anywhere. That bill will most likely be filed again next session, just so you're aware of that. And that's...
Any hope of getting it in the special session?
I can't comment on that right now, but I just want to let you know that bill does exist in the server.
Thank you. I will follow up with the governor then. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
I bet if we go to our hotel rooms tonight, there'll be an evacuation plan on the back door of that hotel.
Yes, sir.
And that's really what these places are. They're housing people for pay. All right, guys, y'all hung in here with us a long time.
One second,
You got another one?
Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead. Mr. Chairman.
I just wanted to, thank you all for your testimony. It was clear, it was succinct. Most of you stopped when you were told to.
Yep.
You know, not everybody has that talent, but especially Michael. Michael, I just wanted to, you did spend a lot of time in state affairs, and we did a lot of disaster work this session in the House, as well as the Senate did too. But I think the point is there's synergies with all types of disasters. And if you can find those synergies, whether it's a fire, a flood, hurricane, tornado, and unfortunately, even a school shooting, one of those synergies is interoperability. That's something that affects every disaster. Is that what you were saying?
Yeah, I mean, I was glad to hear that Travis and Williamson have self-interoperable, but most people don't have billionaires walking around building a tax base. And so the state's got to, you know, endow that interoperability so we don't get the kind of thing you saw in the Panhandle where all the first responders have got different radios, can't talk to each other.
Well, the point is 89% of the state's covered by volunteer firefighters.
Yeah.
As that are typically your first responder in a disaster, you know, and then law enforcement comes in. And, you know, we've heard it over and over, you know, interoperability causes at least 3 12-hour cycles before people get on the same page. Even in the sheriff who of this county testified earlier today that they'd spent $7 million on radios, and they were 3 days getting all the volunteers radios, first responder volunteers radios programmed to theirs before they solved interoperability. So anyway, but I appreciate you bringing that up.
Yeah, it's key.
I would just say the comment you made about one of the best committees, you know, when we get over our partisan politics, we do really good work together.
You know, preventing drowning is not a Democrat or
Both
Republican issue.
It is not, and it's unfortunate it takes these events to bring us together. But
thanks to all of you.
We do well together. We got a lot of great members. All right, guys, thank you for being here again, hanging in here all day. All right, I'm going to make a stack. I'm going to call these all through. I don't think there's many left. If you want to testify and I do not call your name, I do not have the card. I know I have the panel left for 2, but I'm just going to clear the public. So Jason Hyde, Salvador Espinoza, Sheila Hemphill, Pamela Hart, Ryan Logue, Henry Ortega, Mike Silverman, Morton Baird III, Shannon Donahue, Lawrence Walker, Barbara Oates, Ashlyn Bolton, Evelyn Miller, Chris Distel, Clay Lambert, Betty Murphy, Kathleen Brinkman, Ron Learman, Ryan Pape, Jacob Torres, Bubba Walters, Sherry Reynolds, Richard Donanet, I think D-O-H-N-E-T. Richard, is that you? It looks like a D-O-H, maybe a B-O-H? B-O-H. You live in Comfort? Yes, sir. That's you. Come on in.
Hi, you.
Mark Means. Michael Horn. Ava Zolari. Again, I believe this is William Spearhart. Paul Chatelaine. Is there anyone else wishing to testify tonight in public on the Senate joint House and Senate hearing today? If there is, you do not have a card, you would need to come to the table and get a card once you testify. I hear none. I'm going to close public testimony. All right, you got 3 minutes. State your name. Tell us what you want to know.
My name is Sheila Hemphill with Texas Right to Know, and I'm so appreciative of this committee. And I would even take 5 seconds for y'all to take a deep breath, stretch a little bit, and eat your brains on, because after this 3 minutes, which I'm ecstatic to have another minute, it's usually get 2. So I'm here today because on your document, my appeal is for a call to Governor Abbott to place geoengineering on the call of the special session and to refile SB 1154 by Senator Hughes and HB 1132 by Representative Verdell, and for Senator Perry and Senator King to call for a hearing on these bills in the Disaster Preparedness Flooding Committee. It is imperative that we know this known knowledge be investigated as potential contributor to this devastating crisis. I have testified on numerous times for the last 10 years in front of a bunch of you. Most of you know I am a root cause advocate. So what I've heard today is about monitoring, and the best thing Texas, and I'm not mocking anyone, I'm grateful for everybody that does their job, and I've come to the conclusion we have a lot of really good people in a really broken system. We must look at the root cause, and so we're going to take the next however many minutes, and we're going to talk about geoengineering. This information is coming from Dane Whittington with Geoengineering Watch, who's been researching this for over 20 years. Here are some pictures. So here we have, together class, there's a difference between, sorry, was it disrespectful? I was a teacher. There's a big difference between condensation, which happens from normal air travel, and what we are seeing, which is stratospheric aerosol emissions. They are not the same thing, and that has been one of the biggest deceptions that has happened for decades. This technology goes back to like 1948. There are many military events that have utilized this technology. One in particular was Operation Popeye in 1967 in Vietnam, where they did use cloud seeding, which was the distribution of sodium, silver iodide, and lead in the atmosphere, causing massive flooding in the supply lines in Vietnam. So this technology is distinctly designed to use by the military, and it might be interesting to you to know that NOAA and the National Weather Service contracts with Raytheon, military defense contractor Raytheon, to do the weather modeling for NOAA and the National Weather System. I can show you the contracts. Also, Lockheed Martin, another military contract, does the modeling for the FAA. So back to our document here. If you will, let's clarify some terms. There's different terms of cloud seeding, which a lot of times those providers